What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. The X-Men have been around since the early 60s, led of course by Professor Xavier at the School for Gifted Youngsters. Now, with so many mutants coming and going over the years, be it years in the future or years in the past, because you know how the X-Men do, there have been many children of X-Men members who also inherit these spectacular abilities, and then some. So without further ado, guys, I'm Taylor McWaters, and on today's list, we'll be counting down the top 10 X-Men members who got pregnant. Let's do it. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Kitty Pryde. We'll start off this list with one of the more wild X-Men adventures. It's kind of a pregnancy, but kind of not. Hear me out. We go back now to Wolverine and the X-Men issue 4, where Kitty is surprised. She has a pregnancy scare, only she's 8 months pregnant out of the blue. Well, she thought that she was pregnant when it was actually these brood drones that were attacking her from inside of her body. So the X-Men fought back, of course, but this time they were fighting at a microscopic level. They shrank down really small to get a closer look, and they fought these brood drones inside of her. It was crazy. Now at this time, Kitty was leading the Jean Grey school, and while the team was fighting in her body, Kitty had to fight off an adult brood while they invaded the school. Now thankfully, Kitty was injected with Centaurian penicillin after the battle was done, and she didn't have any more pregnancy scares with any drones or anything happening like that. So that was a one and done, thankfully. And before we continue on with this list, guys, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, it really does help our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thanks so much. Now let's get right back into the list. Number 9, Wanda Maximoff. This pregnancy comes from Earth 2182. Now you may be thinking of a different pregnancy involving the Scarlet Witch, which I'll get into a little later on. But in this universe, she gives birth to a daughter named Nocturne. And the father here is, well, you can probably guess by looking at them, Nightcrawler. She got her dad's looks, unfortunately, and Nocturne came to life in Marvel Comics with X-Men Millennial Visions, issue 1. She, of course, possesses the powers of both her parents, and it's quite the spectacle. She can blast off energy bolts just like her mother, and she can climb walls like her father. But what makes her even more powerful than her parents is that she also has the ability to possess others for 12 hours. Once that timer is done, the victim is just down for the count for the entire day. Talk about the hangover of a lifetime. Number 8, Mystique. This next one's kind of funky. Okay, so this kid was born and almost became president, basically. Yeah, so Mystique and Sabretooth, two iconic X-Men characters, had a son named Graydon Creed, which sounds evil right off the bat. But basically at this time, Mystique was posing as a spy, and she seduced Victor while he was in Germany on a mission. So when Mystique gave birth to Graydon Creed, he didn't have superpowers or anything like that. No, instead he was given up for adoption, where Mystique would then keep an eye on him from afar. Now, it wasn't until he found out who his true parents were and that he learned that he'd been abandoned until he started to become a villain and despise the mutant community. Rightfully so. I mean, you got a fair point. Growing up to form a group called the Friends of Humanity, which isn't as friendly as it sounds. In fact, it was for opposing mutant civil rights. So quite the opposite. Opposing them, of course, by causing violent attacks. So he ended up running for president in X Factor, because that's what bad people do apparently now. And in issue 130, we see him taken out by a future version of Mystique. Told you, time is tricky in these comics. She takes him out because Graydon was responsible for the death of Trevor Chase, the grandson of Destiny in the future. So yeah, some of these pregnancies are a little bit more stressful than others. Number 7, Emma Frost. This alternate reality introduces us to Ruby Summers, the daughter of Emma Frost and Cyclops. Her first appearance was in X Factor Special Layla Miller issue 1. So meet Ruby Summers. She lives in that same cruel future where Bishop was born. Now, this Sentinel-controlled nightmare of a reality is not an ideal place to live. So there and her much older father ran the Summer Rebellion, where humans and mutants came together to make a stand. Now, Emma's never seen in the comic because, well, she wasn't alive when the story began, but Emma was still being talked about and missed dearly by Cyclops. He's just sitting on a bench looking out at the water, all sad and Cyclops-like. Number 6, Wanda Maximoff again. One of the biggest turning points for Wanda in the MCU is, of course, during the events of WandaVision. See, just like the comics, Wanda gives birth to two twins, Billy and Tommy. And as we saw in the show, the kids were just created using Wanda's magic, and they were also left behind, as well as a life that she had created post-Endgame, including Vision. But what does this mean now for Wanda? Will she be okay? It kind of feels like she just lost Vision again, this time with children in a house. It kind of feels worse than the first time around, maybe. So the loss of her kids is actually what caused the events of the House of M to unfold in the comics. And with Wanda reading up on chaos magic with the Book of the Damned at the end of that show, and we hear her kids calling out to her right before the screen cuts to black, perhaps she's not completely done with them yet. Billy, aka Wiccan, gained the abilities of magic like his mother, and Tommy, aka Speed, has, well, super speed like her brother Quicksilver. Number 5, Madeline Pryor. She made her first debut in Uncanny X-Men issue 168, and since her first arrival to comics, she bared a striking striking resemblance to Jean Grey, who had passed on at this time in the comics. Now, everybody thought she was just Jean Grey reborn, and to make things more fishy, Madeline's mind was closed off to Professor X, and she was the only survivor of a plane crash that went down when the Dark Phoenix just happened to disappear on the moon. Coincidence? Maybe not. No. So what ended up happening was that she was a clone of Jean Grey created by Mr. Sinister. See, Mr. Sinister's plan was for Madeline and Scott Summers to have a child, and then they could use that child to defeat Apocalypse. And that child was, of course, Nathan Summers, aka Cable. Number 4, Mystique. Again, when you have a child, at least in the Marvel Universe, those powers are not only passed on, but usually they're stronger than before, because that's just how fun comic books work. This was the case on Earth 13729 when Mystique gave birth to Raze, with the father being Wolverine. Sounds like the dream team. Imagine being born with just one of those parents' abilities, you'd be set. But luckily, Raze was born with both. Well, not really luckily, unfortunately rather. Yeah, Raze grew up resenting his mother, and eventually his hatred came full circle when he took her out and then replaced her without anybody knowing. Yeah, super kids can be super evil as well, you never know. Raze's shape-shifting powers are stronger than his mother's, and he clearly has some aggression issues just like his dad. In X-Men No More Humans, Raze had this ultimate plan where he was going to remove the human population from Earth, and then now instead bring in mutants from other multiverses to make this massive mutant paradise, this big water park full of mutants. Some of these alternate offsprings are just a nightmare. Oh my god. Number 3, Rogue. We now take a look into 2005's X-Men The End. And in issue 5, Rogue, aka Anna Marie, got married and had children with Gambit. And they're a fan favorite when it comes to couples in the X-Men universe. And readers were delighted when they met Rebecca and Oliver LeBeau. Rebecca, nicknamed Ray, is the youngest, and she's the thief just like her dad, and she even carries a staff as well. But she also has the ability to fly, and super strength allows her to pack quite the punch. Oliver, he's great, the kid's awesome. He's older, he has quite the temper, and he loves to fight, and he just happens to be a skilled martial artist and often trains with his father. He has his mother's ability of absorbing powers, only his is of course even stronger. So he's permanently absorbed telepathy, and he's actually not a fan of it. He kind of hates it, which, fair. If I had telepathy, I probably wouldn't like it as much as I thought. Number 2, Mystique. Again. During the Battle of the Atom story, we were introduced to Charles Xavier II. This happened when Mystique was disguised as Moira McTaggart. He was given up at birth, and when his powers developed, he accidentally took out his new mom. Oops. But when he tracked down Mystique, that was the time I mentioned earlier, with Raze taking the spot of Mystique. So the two were actually half brothers. How neat is that? They both ended up joining forces come All New X-Men issue 27. Xavier 2 was so powerful, he actually took over the minds of current X-Men members and recruited them to his own brotherhood. He was the worst. He controlled them like puppets. He gave them just enough brain activity to know what was happening to them, but not enough to fight it. What a damn nightmare. And finally, number 1, Storm. If you think that alternate reality of Earth 13729 is bad, with all those evil little offspring joining forces, wait until I tell you about Storm's child. Meet Chimera, also making her first debut in X-Men issue 36, Battle of the Atom. She's with the good guys this time. That's why I wanted to end with this one, because she's from the same world as Xavier 2, but she's on the good side. Thankfully. Chimera is the daughter of Storm, so she obtains the ability, of course, to manipulate the weather, and she too can make it rain. She can also influence animal behaviors psionically. That plus her super sense of smell allows her to track just about anybody. It's about time we get someone on the good team in this mad world. Well guys, there you have it. Which of these X-Men offspring are your favorite? I'm a big fan of Nocturne. I'd actually love those powers. Those would be great. Guys, drop us a comment down below which of these parents you would love to have if you could pick any super X-Men parents. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in to Top 10 Nerd. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.